I got another unusual one for you. Some would say it's hot, some would say it's burning. This is a 1946 Willys Jeep that survived a fire. Yes, a real fire. The guy I bought it from had this sitting in his parents' barn, more of an overhead without any side on the front. And around the barn were a bunch of tall weeds, kind of like that. And his mom set fire to the weeds to get rid of them and then walked away and went down the road to visit the neighbors. Meanwhile, the fire got way out of control and it ended up into the barn where the Jeep was sitting. So you can see right here that the fire mainly started in the back and worked its way forward to about kind of in the cowl area. It stopped more diagonally. Right here, all the gauges, they got the brunt of it. I mean, they're absolutely melted. Never seen anything like that before. But on the important side, the data tag is still there. And this is a 1946. An easy way to tell is it's the 3 tags instead of the 1 long one. They did that in 45, 46. And I also looked up that number right there. I believe they had a plastic fuel tank. You see where the fuel line is? And all this stuff is just molten. I mean, I was smacking with a hammer trying to chisel it off. And it was all I could do to get some of it out of there. This tire kind of took the brunt of the fire as well. She's all but melted there. The fire truly only destroyed the cosmetic side of the Jeep. I mean, it was obviously pretty rough before the fire even happened. Someone was trying to make this thing into an M38, it looks like. They've got the M38 grille, easy way to tell. They've got this style bezel over the headlight, and then it's got a spot for a blackout light to mount instead of the standard marker lights on a civilian Jeep. They've also welded in the fuel filler hole right here, presumably to make it look like a military Jeep. And then, of course, lots of Bondo right here. Nothing to be missed about. So did the fire destroy anything of importance? Not really. I mean, the gauges, I guess you could argue. But, I mean, it had no seat frames. Probably it didn't have the real gas tank for it because that would still be surviving. What's funny, though, is that even though it's got burnt in the back, you go under the Jeep and everything seems to be just normal. I mean, covered in grease just like any other old Jeep. All the support is there. This rear bumper section of the frame definitely got hit, but it's not even an original rear bumper. And it doesn't look like the frame is truly compromised in any way. You know, just from behind the bumper, it's still got black paint on it and grease. So I'd say she's pretty good there. I mean, the chassis is definitely worth using. Previous owner told me he was changing the rear main seal. He had the engine pulled out for that. What he did not say was that the engine was not finished being reinstalled. So you'd see right here that it's not bolted up to the bell housing. And then of course the motor mount is not really on. Rather, the engine is more sitting on its side up against the exhaust and this motor mount over here. I'm assuming this is a CJ2A engine just because it's got the flat embossed right here where the serial number is instead of over here. However, it does have a World War II Ford GPW head, which we could see right there. Oddly enough, the engine still does turn over, and he filled up the engine with, it's not oil, it's almost like it was kerosene. It was awfully thin. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I mean, whatever is in there definitely saved the engine. The guy told me before the fire happened, he drove this all over his parents' property. He redid the brakes on the thing, the rear main seal he was doing, redid the wiring. I mean, it sounded like it was kind of dialed in. I mean, aside from the rough cosmetics, it was a running, driving vehicle. And then after the fire happened, I think he's like, you know what? I've already did everything once. I don't want to do it again, and life goes on. So he was decided to part ways with it, and that's when I went to go pick it up. My original plan with the Jeep was to get this thing running and driving because I love a good underdog story, especially how cool would it be to be romping around this thing out in the trail. Even though it was in a fire, it almost doesn't look like it. It looks just kind of like normal rust. You wouldn't get the street cred that you would deserve taking this thing down the trail unless people could see the gauges. Then they would know what you're all about. I thought I was going to get it running and driving. The problem is this is a little more involved than I initially anticipated, both financially and time-wise. I thought the engine was kind of already installed. You know, the carburetor was ready to go, starter, stuff like that. To me, this would be the perfect project for like a 16-year-old that's looking for something cheap. He wants a Willys Jeep but not a lot of money to spend. And if I was in their shoes, what I would do, I'd first remove the engine. I mean, it's truly not even installed in the first place. I'd pull the engine out, take the bell housing out the transmission and put it on the engine. That way I could run the starter and check compression. If compression checks out like it's gonna run, then what I would do is probably put on a new clutch or at least inspect the one that's on there. I would go ahead, replace the oil lines that are on here because they look just pretty old. And then, you know, of course, fuel pump, rebuild the carburetor, spark plug, stuff like that. Put it back in the Jeep, get it rewired, put a modern 12-volt alternator on there, make a nice battery tray over here, and then you can kind of get the Jeep running and driving at that point. Then you can decide what you're going to do for brakes. Obviously, the cheapest option, you can buy a total drum brake rebuild kit for I think somewhere around 220 bucks. Plus, I think you had to buy the brake line separate for 75, maybe a master cylinder for another 50. So you're not talking a lot of money there. Of course, then you have radiator hoses, antifreeze oil, oil filter, etc. So if you bought this Jeep and you wanted to get it running, driving, stopping, I would say if you did all the work yourself, you could probably do it in that $800 range. As for seats, you want to keep it on the down low. You could always make your own bench seat or something like that. If you wanted to do a full-on restoration, it's probably not the one for you. I mean, it's at the point where you need a new tub. I mean, this tub it's savable, but the amount of money and time it would take to buy all the patch panels, put them in, you'd basically have a brand new tub at the end of it anyway, so you might as well just buy one that's already done. So if you're going to do the restoration and you're looking at it as you're going to buy a new body in the first place, this is a great running gear to do it with. It rolls really nice, steers really nice. The engine could obviously be rebuilt, trainee transfer case. In a lot of ways, if you're going to pick a restoration vehicle, this is almost the one that you'd want to start off with. If you knew from the get-go that you're going to be replacing the tub, you'd almost want to find the cheapest Jeep possible with the engine that turns over, because you're not paying the extra money for a little bit nicer body that you're going to inevitably end up throwing away anyways. A common thing I see is people spend more money to have a less rusted out Jeep, and let's just say that's got a little bit of rust hole here. Well, you're spending more money, but you still got to replace the entire panel. So the guy that spends less money with the entire floor rotted out, you're both buying the same patch panel, you're cutting out the same piece, you're welding the same piece in. So to me, truly, if you're going the route of replacing the body or adding patch panels, you might as well get one that's as rough as this one. So like I said, I love a good underdog story, and it'd be totally fun to go ahead and get this thing resurrected. The problem is I know just doing the bare minimum, getting this running, driving, stopping, assuming the engine is usable with good compression, you don't have to tear into that, you're talking about a month's worth of work. You could say my summer is overbooked in a sense, and I probably should not be messing with something like this, so we're going to go ahead, send her on down the road, but I thought it'd be cool to make a little video about something like this. And if you're looking for a good deal on a Jeep, be looking out for the weird stories like this. Look out for the one that's got a weird homemade top on it. Look out for the one that's been in a fire. Maybe keep on messaging the guy that's really slow to respond or takes a week or two. I mean, that's how you're going to get the good deals, and that's how you're going to get the diamond in the rough.